All right, today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to crack open a single, pretty dry corporate document, but I promise you, inside there's a fascinating story of a $191 million deal that, well, it went a bit sideways. This is about more than just numbers. It's a real high-stakes drama, all playing out in financial filings.
And here it is. This is our source material, a regulatory filing just packed with the kind of legal and financial jargon that's almost designed to make your eyes glaze over. But we're not going to let that happen, because this is where the real story is hiding, right there in plain sight.
So that's our mission today. We're going to dig into this filing and piece together this story. We're going to translate all that corporate speak into a clear narrative about strategy, about money, and about a massive international deal that had a pretty major twist.
Okay, so every story has a beginning, and this one starts with a handshake deal, a deal worth a staggering $191 million. But first, let's meet the main players, shall we? So in one corner, you've got KPIT Technologies, a huge tech firm based out of India. And who were they looking to buy? Caresoft, an engineering services company with a pretty big global footprint, operations in the US, the UK, Mexico, and Italy. And that global part is really key here. It makes this whole thing a complex international puzzle.
And just so we're all on the same page, what we're talking about here is an acquisition. It's basically when one company buys another one to take control. So put simply, KPIT wanted to own Caresoft. Simple enough, right? Let's move on.
Now the price tag they first agreed on, wow, it was enormous. On May 6, 2025, KPIT announces the deal for what they call a total consideration. That's just the full value of the deal, of a cool $191 million. That's the number that kicked this whole thing off. But here's where the story gets really interesting. That $191 million figure, it wasn't set in stone. Not even close. In fact, just a few months later, the deal took a totally unexpected turn that completely changed the math. Let's see what happened. I mean, just look at this chart. The price plummets from $191 million in May all the way down to $157 million by August. That is a $34 million drop. In a deal of this size, that isn't just a small adjustment, it's a massive shift. So you have to be asking, right? Why? What on earth happens in just 3 months to make a deal's value fall by the price of a small fleet of private jets? Well, the answer, of course, is buried right back in that corporate filing.
And here it is, the official reason, pulled straight from the document. Overall changes in the macros business environment. Now, this is classic corporate speak. It's intentionally vague, but it's basically a catch-all for big picture stuff. Market volatility, changing forecasts, things that made both sides say, maybe we should rethink this price.
And you know, the new deal wasn't just cheaper, it was also smarter. To protect themselves from those macro changes, they built in $15 million of what's called variable pay. This just means part of the payment was tied to how well Caresoft actually performed in the future. It's a really clever way to share the risk. Okay, so the new price is set at $157 million, but how do you actually move that much money across 4 different countries? This is where it gets complicated, so let's follow the money.
This timeline shows us the logistical dance they had to do. You can see the sequence here. First, on August 8th, they lock in the new price. Then, KPT gets the capital ready, moving money into place. And just a week later, boom, August 15th, the first big payment goes out. The final bit comes in October. And here's a closer look at how that money moved. Step 1. KPIT in India sends cash, a mix of euros and dollars, to its subsidiaries in the UK and the US. Step 2. Those subsidiaries then turn around and pay out that initial $51 million. And with that one move, they now control all of Caresoft in the US, the UK, and Mexico.
But wait a second. If you've been paying attention, you'll remember Caresoft operated in 4 countries. That first payment only covered 3. The deal wasn't quite done yet. There was one final piece of the puzzle that needed to be put into place.
And that final piece was Caresoft's Italian company, a business called Access SRL. This was the last domino that had to fall. To make the whole transaction complete and give KPIT 100% control, they had to acquire this entity too.
So, to finally complete the puzzle, KPIT's UK subsidiary made one last payment, $6 million. That money was specifically to buy 100% of OXI SRL in Italy, and with that, the books were officially closed on the entire takeover. So let's just put all those numbers in one place to get a clear picture. You can see the entire arc of the deal right here, from that huge initial offer of $191 million
down to the renegotiated $157 million, and then the two-part payment to get it all done. It's the whole story, told in financials.
So what's the big picture here? Why does it matter that we just broke down this one corporate document? Well, because this single story actually reveals some really important truths about how big business works in the real world.
So here's what it all boils down to. This story shows that these massive deals are never really set in stone. They're living, breathing things that can be reshaped by huge forces. It also shows that those vague phrases like macroeconomic changes can have a very real, multi-million-dollar impact. And maybe most importantly, it proves that behind the boring jargon of corporate filings are these incredibly detailed, high-stakes stories. You just have to know how to read them.
Which leaves us with one last, really fascinating question to think about. When a deal's price drops by $34 million, who's the real winner? Is it the buyer who got a massive discount? Or is it the seller who still managed to secure a huge exit in a shaky market? You know, there's no simple answer, and that's what makes these stories so compelling. Thanks for digging into this with me.